Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Witchy Week Ahead. I'm recording this on Monday, the 10th of August. I always check, I know what the date is, and then I end up automatically checking my computer. Um, so lots going on this week energetically. So today and tomorrow, and I think quite a lot of Wednesday actually are the dark moon phase of the lunar cycle. And then we are heading into eclipse season. So I've just been typing my Sisters of the Moon blog, which will come out on Wednesday. And I start the blog by saying I'm a little bit apprehensive about this eclipse season, just, coming pretty much straight away out of that really intense Mercury retrograde, and all the other planetary movements that have been going on as well. All the stuff that's happening in, world news, and then, as we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks, all the stuff that's been happening here with the drought and the wildfires as well, which is still, there's been so many since I spoke to you last week again. So, um, yeah, these are intense times, they're challenging times. And something that I wanted to speak on today because this became really obvious to me on Saturday. And I thought, I know I went off on a big rant last week, and it's important to do that. Sometimes it's important to, um, yeah, have those discussions and get a little bit fiery and all of that. But then it's also, I feel, important to um, focus on some positives or anchor into some positives, and not in a, as I always say, not in a gaslighting way, not in a toxic positivity way, but we need that balance. We've been able to look at the really difficult stuff, we've been able to lean in and witness what is happening, but then to also to find the things that support us and sustain us. And one of the real big themes with Leo, which this new moon solar eclipse is going to be in, is this sense of holding on to your joy and doing that amidst what is happening. So, not doing that in a way that is oblivious to the suffering of other people or oblivious to what is happening. And it's really easy to slip into that as well, of just being like, oh, I'm not going to pay attention to whatever's going on. I don't want it to bring me down, because then we're not part of the world. And again, it's that real privilege, isn't it, to be able to do that. However, it is possible to anchor into positive things, loving things, magical things. And this is kind of what I wanted to speak about today. So, how our magic can sustain us in turbulent times. And the reason I was reminded of this is I had an open day on Saturday, or an open afternoon on Saturday. No, in keeping with me keeping it real, as I often um, talk about, this was not a successful event in terms of what we might think of as successful. So hardly anybody came. So it wasn't successful in terms of footfall. The people that did come did make some purchases from the shop, but the shop wasn't very busy, and so financially the day wasn't very successful. However, if we redefine or we expand what success is, I would argue that the day was incredibly successful, because the people that did come seemed to just get so much out of being in the space. And a couple of people in particular that I'm thinking about who are quite new to the space, quite new to this kind of work, very interested in the sort of path of the Green Witch, and like just starting to lean into all of that. And because the space was quiet and my attention wasn't so divided, because I wasn't busy with overwhelmed with so many people coming, I could really give them my time. And we spent most of the day in the witchy kitchen, And so I was showing them how to do spell jars, and they'd, not done any work with oracle cards before, so we did that. And then um, they wanted to make some crystal jewelry as well. And it was just wonderful to introduce people to this world of plants, of being intentional with our energy. And they just absolutely loved it. And I remember saying it to Rich, my husband, on the way back. I was like, yeah, on paper, this has not been successful at all. It's probably one of the quietest events that I've ran. But one thing that I'm personally trying to lean into more and more, especially in the context of everything that is going on, is what is success, and what is meaningful to me as a teacher, somebody that's been doing this now for like it's almost 20 years really of doing this work. And that was really revealed to me on the weekend. It's like, this is why I do what I do. Of course, I need to be able to pay the bills. And that is important. And it's a big part of my stress sometimes. But I don't do this work to have a particular lifestyle. I don't um, teach other people that if you do this work that you're going to have these six-figure months that everyone keeps promising one another. It's not that. It's often like the lower the lower side um of income, but it's really meaningful and it's really important work. And I think, yeah, just now more than ever. So yeah, this is just my own sort of personal reflections. I've just been really thinking about how we measure success, what success is. And if you're a holistic practitioner, if you're a priestess, if you're a witch, if you're an energy worker, surely success has to be measured in the people that we're helping and the depth of which we're able to help them as well. That's something that I've been really sitting with as I plan next year and I look at what I want to offer, the way in which I want to offer it. Yeah, it's been a sort of mechanism, I guess, of mine for a while, following like a traditional business format of, focusing on big numbers or, medium-sized numbers and really intensive sort of trainings, and then you're on to the next thing. And this year's really sort of taught me that that's not the way that I want to teach anymore. And I'd rather have like smaller, more intimate groups where I feel like we're working really deeply. I've just had this experience with my first round of Reiki level 2. So this is the practitioner training. So we've been doing this over 6 months and really small group and a lot of one-to-one mentoring in between the training weekends. And I feel like we've gotten so much further and so much deeper because of being able to be in that container together. So I'm excited to yeah, to be working in a different way. This is going to be across like the yoga teacher training, the Reiki trainings, Witch School, which lots of you have shown a lot of interest in. So thank you. And there has been a question of offering it online. So the inspiration for Witch School, and I should add also, I didn't realize there's a teacher that I follow. Her name has just disappeared from my memory, but she's wonderful and I follow her, and I didn't realize that she has an offering called Witch School. So apologies if anybody affiliated with her, or I mean I think it's highly unlikely that she would see this video, but I didn't know that that name was already being used, so I apologize. It's hard to get good names that are not already taken. There's a slight subtle difference of which school mine and the Witch School, but I mean, yeah, very similar. Anyway, the inspiration for this in-person event came from my Green Witches Year course, which I think the first time that I ran that course was about 4 years ago, and this was completely done online. The first year that I ran it, it was done as an interactive year together. So I'd release the content for the month and then we'd have a Green Witches circle online via Zoom. and you get like a workbook, and there'd be meditations and practices, and I absolutely loved putting it together. And after it ran the first year, I had a lot of requests if I could repeat it. And I couldn't repeat it live because I didn't have the space in my timetable. But I thought I'll just package it all up with everything that's pre-recorded and ready, and people can do it as a self-paced container. And it was really, really well received. And it's been like that ever since. So each year I'm like, oh, am I going to retire this course? I tried to retire it last year, and then I got a lot of requests again. I was like, okay, we're going to keep this going. Um, so the inspiration for this in-person monthly event has actually come from the original online container. So I will release that again. She's not retiring this year either. I will release that again end of December, and then you can sign up. I can't remember off the top of my head how much it is. It's quite discounted now because it's an older course. Um, I think it was something like 50, I don't know, £50 or something like that. And that's for the whole year. And there's a lot in there. I'm really proud of that course. So yeah, anybody that's interested in the online version of Witch School, then the Green Witches Year will be available. I'm also currently building a course that is putting together some of the sort of highlights, if you like, from the Avalonian priestess training that I ran last year and the year before. So if you're somebody that's wanting to sort of lean in a little bit more to working with the Avalonian priestess path, so this is predominantly working with Morgan Le Fay. The course is going to be called Meeting Morgan. So lots of meditations with her and her animal allies, or maybe her in animal form because she is a shapeshifter. There's going to be a lot of plant lore in there as well, specifically indigenous British plants and herbs to work with magically. There'll be like incense recipes in there, so like ceremonial smokes, the Ogham as well, so that all the beautiful folklore and the energetics of the trees and the tree calendar. The tree calendar itself is a modern invention, a little bit like what we talked about with the way the Wheel of the Year is presented. However, it is beautiful to work with and a really nice way to connect with the trees. So I think it's valid, even if it's modern. And that is a helpful distinction. Just because something's new doesn't mean it's less valid than something that is ancient. Yes. It's our practice, it's our magic, it's what we're drawn to. So more on Meeting Morgan. I'm hoping to get that released end of August, early September. I think it would be a really nice thing to step into in Virgo season, because Virgo is the priestess, Virgo is the herb keeper. And so I think it would be really beautiful to have that offered around that time and going into autumn as well. So again, the price of that will be quite accessible. I think I've set that to be I think it's like $100 or something like that. So more on those two things to follow. But let's talk about this week. So dark moon. So remembering however many weeks, it's got to be about 4 weeks, hasn't it? That I had my witchy week ahead and we talked about the dark moon. And I was saying that it's a really important time to just down tools for a little bit, slow down, take stock. I always am very physically impacted by the dark moon. I feel really exhausted today. I feel quite a bit spacey and a bit run down. And eclipses as well. I'm always really physically impacted by eclipses. I know a lot of other people too that feel the same. I am more than likely going to be poorly, I think, this week, like a cold or something like that. So yeah, they're quite impactful on our bodies, or can be. So just being aware of that as we go into eclipse portal as well, they can knock us about a little bit. So dark moon is that time where the moon is not appearing. So she's offering us an invitation. You too can retreat, come back to center, and get clarity if you're able to on the blessings and the teachings and the lessons of the previous cycle and what you want to take with you, and of course, what you don't want to take with you. And so, working with smoke, I won't suggest working with fire at the moment, but that can be nice, a little fire ceremony at a dark moon when we're not in a drought. Um, you can work with water. I mean, the dark moon today is in Cancer. So actually a releasing ritual with water could be really, really beautiful to release what you don't want to take with you. And also starting to think about anything that's already starting to come through in relation to the eclipse portal or eclipse season. So, eclipse season is going to begin with the new moon solar eclipse, total solar eclipse in Leo on Wednesday. And then it's going to run until the full moon partial lunar eclipse in Pisces. Um, which is going to be interesting because Pisces is interesting anyway, and then you add an eclipse into it, and it's very interesting. But we'll talk about that later. But in this time period, before and also slightly after, there's a sense of themes that start to move around you. So you might already be aware of things happening in the collective and things happening within yourself where you are noticing like a return of a theme, a return of a pattern of behavior, yours or someone else's. Often with eclipses, they bring things back up to be witnessed or be explored. And sometimes this can be actually people, a message from someone you haven't heard from in a decade or 2 decades or something like that. There's always a joke too of like exes reappearing during an eclipse portal as well. And they work in 18-year cycles, which I find fascinating. So if you're able to think back, I'm certainly not. I'm going to have to ask my mom what I was up to 18 years ago. I was trying to think, I was like, no, I've got no clue because it's 2008, isn't it? Please correct me if I'm wrong, because my mind is a bit floaty today. But yeah, I was thinking, I haven't got a clue. I was think I was in Sydney at that point. But yeah, I can't really grasp what I was up to or the themes, but I suppose it might become apparent as we move through the next few weeks. What I would do if you're really interested is go forth and read, the astrology blogs and yeah, lean into what this time is all about. I'm not an astrologer. I will often say that I'm really interested in it and I love to work with the energy. But I'm not an expert and I don't have that level of detail. However, I have really noticed in my life since working with eclipses that I really do notice that um aspect of endings and beginnings and paying attention to what is closing out and then what is starting. And I have really felt that to be true in my life. Like the things that have closed out in an eclipse have closed. And I've tried to just make my peace with that and go, that's ending. And then really looking at what is coming in and what you want to step into in that respect. I have got a blog, as I said before, so I will release that on Wednesday. That will be over on the Sisters of the Moon Patreon. I'll put the link under the video today. And then if you join as a free member, you'll get an email when that blog is live and you can have a little read. I share some quotes from some other astrologers as well, and do a little bit of my take on it, and hopefully some helpful points that can connect you with this time. But yeah, it can be intense, there's no two ways about it. It can be an intense time, but I think if we know that that's what is happening, it makes it a little bit easier when we understand and we don't internalize it as something that is only going on for us. We can understand that we're all part of this family that is influenced whether you like it or not, whether you want to be or not, we are influenced by planetary movements. We are influenced by eclipses. We are influenced by the moon. It's not something that we can opt in or opt out of. Yeah, there's some confusing information that I've seen recently where I'm like, yeah, that's not a thing. You can't just opt out of being impacted by the cycles. And going back to ancient civilizations, for example, Stonehenge and other stone circles here in the UK, one of their functions was to predict and track the eclipses. And they understood that they had a massive impact physically, energetically, and spiritually as well. And we have lost that connection. There's a lot of information, isn't there, at the moment about viewing the eclipse as a kind of, again, like an external thing, like we talked about last week, that like, oh, that's pretty, or oh, that's interesting, and then we carry on with our life, but we're never really stopping and pausing and going, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean for us as a global family? What are the lessons here? So much has been revealed in this time of extreme weather and drought and hardship that we could really learn from this and grow from this and use all of that incredible technology and incredible power of the mind to what's the word? Innovate, a better future where we can be, use all the fear and use all the um yeah, the fear and the overwhelm of what's been happening recently with the weather, and actually channel that into some good. That could be this like collective lesson of, okay, this is scary, this is heading in a direction that is not good. What can we do? How can I step in? How can I step up? How can we work together to stop this from getting any worse? So it's an opportunity. But yeah, we certainly can't opt in or out of being impacted by the world that we live in. We can be a little bit ignorant to it, of course, but it's still going to be moving through the body. It's going to be moving through the energy body. It's going to be moving through the emotions. It's going to be moving through our karma. It functions whether we subscribe to it or not. So on that note, what can we do magically? As I started this episode by saying, I think that our magic, our connection to our allies of plant and crystal and oils and goddesses and other deities can help us to really step into this time and think, okay, I am aware that this is a tricky time to navigate. So I am going to hang up sprigs of rosemary, for example, in my house. Rosemary is incredibly protective. It's been used for centuries to protect energetically. So I've been drying lots of rosemary ahead of this time, and I'm going to be cutting some more to hang up around the house as well. You can also use mallow. We talked about mallow a few weeks ago. That's incredibly protective as well. Really good sprinkled on the boundaries of the house as well. Salt too is really effective. And black tourmaline is also really powerful as a protection. So you can program your tourmaline or your obsidian or your jet and then place it again in the sort of threshold areas of your home to protect against any unwanted energies. And what I'm going to be doing this week, so these are the things that I like to do in times like this where it feels tricky, is to do a simmer pot. So a simmer pot is where you're adding herbs and essential oils potentially, and filling the home with the steam of those. And then I strain it out, and then I put the infused water into a mop bucket, and then I mop all the floors, and then I get a cloth and I do the windows and the door frames. And again, it's that sense of I'm cleansing what has been, thinking of that relationship with the dark moon as well. So I'm letting go of what has been, and then I'm replacing with protective energy. with really intentional energy, and coming into this time with my guides or my goddesses that are going to help me look at what the lessons are. So the thing that's so difficult about eclipses is they are transformational times. And we might identify that we want to change, but at the same time, we don't like it when things change. So this is why I always say to people, be really careful if you are working with a dark goddess, because dark goddesses are a transformation. They're also liminal space, and they're also destruction as well as creation. So we might go to a dark goddess and say, I want to transform, I want my life to change. And they're like, okay. And then they just destroy everything that's an obstacle to us stepping into our new version of ourselves. So if we're not ready for that, if we're not in a position where we can do that, I always say don't ask them for that, because they won't give you what you want, they'll give you what you need, yes, which is quite different sometimes. So this is why eclipses can be tricky, because there's a sense of like pulling things apart, deconstructing to then reconstruct. But if we're hanging on to the old version, the new version can't come in, you know, so that's where it can be tricky. So looking at practices, looking at goddesses that can support you through this transition, where you're able to go, okay, I know that this isn't meant for me anymore, I'm going to put it down, and I'm ready to see what is coming in that is new. But that in between space where the old thing is dying and the new thing hasn't arrived yet is really, really challenging. But all of these astrological events, all of these cycles within the seasons teach us how to be in better relationship with transitional times. The whole point of so many of these teachings is to help us prepare for life. You know, things are going to change in life, people are going to leave, you know, things are going to be deconstructed and reconstructed constantly, just as they are in the natural world. And so if we step into these teachings, the Wheel of the Year teachings, the lunar teachings, the astrological teachings, we get more and more adept at going, okay, this is what is happening. It's a death cycle again. This is preparing me for my own death. This is preparing me for the many mini deaths that happen in life. And how I step into these moments of transformation and transition is helping me, that word again, become resilient. Yes, we need to become more resilient. So we want our magical practices, our spiritual practices, our connection with Goddess to enable us to become more resilient, so that we're not just, you know, buffeted around on the winds of karma and not able to face things and change and grow, you know. So I'm running out of time because I have to go to a play date in a moment. I've got to take my daughter to a play date. So one thing I wanted to share in terms of our card for this week is the late summer card. So this is the book that goes along with the deck, but how gorgeous is this? So this is the witch card associated with late summer. And I want to leave us with this for this week. Both feared and revered, made to seem silly and scary and sacred, the witch is a chameleon-like archetype. The word witch itself is a gatekeeper for those who want to walk this path, learning the ways of the wild wisdom of the world, must dare to have themselves labelled as such. Many turn back, scared of the judgment and derision that has, at various times in history, met women, I would say met everybody who pursue a path of knowledge. At its core, the witch is a wise woman archetype. She is a seeker of knowledge, deeply exploring the natural world. The witch is elemental. She is engaged with the world around her. She knows the turnings of the moon and the risings of the tide. She knows which plants poison and which heal, and thus can both give life and take it away. She knows which crystals store memory and which deflect harm. She has watched the ways of wolves and ravens, owls and snakes, and understands how human nature mirrors animal nature. The witch lives on the fringes, mediating between the wild and the civilized. I love that part. She's not wholly tamed, And so she scares those who bow to social norms instead of natural laws. Like most of nature's creatures, the witch is neither good nor evil. Her nature is to know the natural world, not just with her mind, but with her whole being, and to explore the possibilities that come with that knowing. So, on that note, what I wanted to leave you with from that beautiful reading is that, that kind of like outsider living on the edge, living, um, yeah, on the edges of kind of society and societal norms. And just that reminder again that your practices are your own. So, one of the things that the patriarchal church, and I would argue any patriarchal structure of religion, whatever religion that might be, seeks to do is come between you and your relationship to the divine. So, in terms of that period of time with the witch trials, big part of what was happening was this removal of people who had their own direct line to the divine, whatever that was for them. And they didn't get their wisdom and their knowledge from, going and sitting with a group of people and being told what to do and how to pray and how to have faith and how to see the divine. It was an incredibly personal and intuitive relationship. And so now, as all of this stuff has become more and more accessible, which is brilliant, like how brilliant that it is so accessible and it is so out there. But what I want us to be discerning with, once again, is that we're not just falling back into that pattern of feeling like we need someone else to tell us what to do, because then the patriarchal religious structures are just being replaced by influencers on social media telling you your magic, telling you this is what you need to do here, and you can't do that then. And we rely too much on outside sources. And yeah, I want to share things with you and guide you along the way and inspire you, but I really want you to think of your own practices. So here at the start of this week, think about the eclipse, go and do a bit of research. What does this time mean for you? How do they typically affect you? Start making a note of this over the years. As I've said, there's things that I've read where I'm like, that doesn't show up for me. And other things where I'm like, that absolutely does show up for me. That's valid for me. And then I found my ways of working with that time. So, what are your ways? What are your herbs? And really lean into that relationship as a reclamation of power and sovereignty, because we really don't want to be going into, okay, I've swapped this patriarchal figure associated with the church for a social media influencer, who are also in many ways they're using that relationship to line their pockets as much as the other people many moons again were using that dynamic to line their pockets or to become powerful figures. And this is no I'm not being totally dismissive, maybe a little bit dismissive of the whole influencer thing, but I think you get my point. There's some people online who are incredible and they have so much to share and they have big followings, and I think brilliant, because you've got this amazing gift to share with the world. And then there's always the shadow part of things, isn't there? There's people who I think are doing things for different reasons, dodgy reasons, and as I joke about so often, that kind of idea of like a pyramid scheme in the spiritual world where it's like people are promising you things that they can't deliver. It's very illusionary. So be discerning. What does this eclipse portal mean to you? And I'd love to hear how it's landing for you. And we're going to check back in with each other next week, with the Witchy Week Ahead next week. We'll see how it's starting to move through us. I look forward to seeing your comments. Watch out for that blog that is landing on Wednesday. And just take care of yourselves and stay magical, everybody.